This is a Caproni CA3, kind of a bucket list item. It took me about a year to build it and a year to draw it, so it's a 2-year project. Because you build the basic airframe, you get it done, you're happy with it, then you start detailing it from there. Now sometimes you have to put hard points to where you can screw this detail in and make it, you know, solid, but you detail it afterwards. So yes, each piece becomes its own little project. Even the people in it, the pilots and people, that's a project in its own. It took some thought. The main thing is to make it logistically feasible to move it, haul it, fly it, make sure it's structurally sound enough to be able to fly in a wind, because we don't have perfect conditions hardly ever, you know, and wind doesn't scale down very well. The inspiration, yes. When I was a kid, of course, I've been coming to the museum since most of the airplanes were sitting outside at the old building. So that's how, you know, back in the 60s. But the airplane, I've walked by it many, many times and just looked at it and thought, it has the looks. And something we always say in aviation is if the airplane looks right, it usually flies right. That airplane for World War I always looked right. It had the right proportions, it had a nose moment, the right tail moment, had a long wing, biplane. Now that would probably fly really good as a model because most World War I models are a little sketchy on flight, mainly because they were sketchy for the real ones. So as you scale it down, it gets more difficult. Okay, so I thought that airplane looks like it would be really good, but man, what a nightmare. Plus you can't buy plans, you can't buy kits. It all has to be completely created by you. So I finally got to the point where I started designing my own stuff, and then so it became a project, and I'm kind of long in the tooth now, but I finally, on the bucket list thing, went, well, if I'm going to do it, I better do it now. So get out the paper and start drawing, and that's what I did. So the World War I stuff is really neat because essentially no one alive today was there at the time. So you either have museums or you have books, literature, what have you. So there's no one around anymore with a direct correlation or a direct recollection of it. So that's neat for us to recreate it, keep the history going so it's not forgotten. So that's the whole idea behind Dawn Patrol. We do it because that's what they did, and we just keep history going that way. When it comes to other people seeing what I do, it's always interesting, mainly because they mostly think of model airplanes as model airplanes. They don't look at model airplanes as being as big as your house or as big as your car or things like that. So what we can do today, we weren't able to do 30 years ago. We didn't have reliability of radio equipment. We didn't have a lot of things that we have today, technology-wise, to be able to allow us to create these. You could have built that 30 years ago, but flying it would have been a different story. We didn't have the engines and we didn't have the radio equipment. So what's possible now, we just keep pushing the edge, getting a little bit bigger. Makes me have to buy a bigger trailer, you know, that kind of thing. So, but I love seeing the eyes when people walk up and go, this is a model, are you kidding me? You know, and how long did it take you to build? Well, now with the new glue, it doesn't take as long. So there's a lot of elements that go into making it this feasible, whereas 25, 30 years ago it wasn't. This is 25% or quarter scale. It was very responsive. I've made some changes, of course. As time goes on, you think, boy, I need this or I need that. So it needed to be a little more positive as far as lateral control with the aileron. So I went to 4 aileron servos instead of 2. It started with 2. So there's a few changes here and there, but it's kind of they're always works in progress. And a scale model never gets finished. You just finally quit on it and go on to something else. And that's kind of the way it works. Well, aviation has been pretty much my life. I'm a commercial pilot, have been for 35 years. Now I build interiors for Learjets and other business jets. So I'm in the full-scale realm. I also do modeling. So aviation is kind of my deal. For those of you who aren't aviation-oriented, but you think this is kind of neat, the easiest way to get started is to find a local club and go from there. But scale is kind of my thing. I'm always trying to replicate. You're always trying to recreate in miniature what is real. Whether you make it work or not, you want to make it look like it works, and that's the whole deal.